English conversation. Political and economic instability in the world. How does political instability affect foreign investments? How does political instability affect foreign investments?
It deters investors due to increased risks and uncertainty. It deters investors due to increased risks and uncertainty.
What is a common effect of economic instability on businesses? What is a common effect of economic instability on businesses?
Reduced consumer spending and lower profitability. Reduced consumer spending and lower profitability.
How can businesses mitigate risks from political instability? How can businesses mitigate risks from political instability?
Diversifying markets and investing in stable regions. Diversifying markets and investing in stable regions.
What role do sanctions play in economic instability? What role do sanctions play in economic instability?
Sanctions disrupt trade and financial transactions. Sanctions disrupt trade and financial transactions.
How does economic instability impact employment rates? How does economic instability impact employment rates?
It often leads to higher unemployment rates. It often leads to higher unemployment rates.
Why is currency fluctuation a concern in unstable economies? Why is currency fluctuation a concern in unstable economies?
It affects pricing and profitability of international trade. It affects pricing and profitability of international trade.
How can political instability lead to supply chain disruptions? How can political instability lead to supply chain disruptions?
Unrest can halt production and transport. Unrest can halt production and transport.
What is the impact of economic instability on inflation? What is the impact of economic instability on inflation?
It often causes inflation to rise. It often causes inflation to rise.
How do businesses respond to political instability in host countries? How do businesses respond to political instability in host countries?
They may scale back or exit operations. They may scale back or exit operations.
What is one effect of political instability on tourism? What is one effect of political instability on tourism?
Tourism declines due to safety concerns. Tourism declines due to safety concerns.
How does economic instability affect government revenues? How does economic instability affect government revenues?
Lower economic activity reduces tax revenues. Lower economic activity reduces tax revenues.
Why are emerging markets more vulnerable to political instability? Why are emerging markets more vulnerable to political instability?
They have weaker institutions and governance. They have weaker institutions and governance.
How do businesses assess political risk in a country? How do businesses assess political risk in a country?
Using risk analysis and consulting services. Using risk analysis and consulting services.
What impact does political instability have on currency value? What impact does political instability have on currency value?
Typically causes currency depreciation. typically causes currency depreciation.
How can businesses protect assets in politically unstable regions? How can businesses protect assets in politically unstable regions?
By purchasing political risk insurance. By purchasing political risk insurance.
What is one economic indicator of instability? What is one economic indicator of instability?
Volatile stock market performance. Volatile stock market performance.
How does political instability affect foreign exchange reserves? How does political instability affect foreign exchange reserves?
Reserves may deplete to defend currency. Reserves may deplete to defend currency.
What role do international organizations play in political instability? What role do international organizations play in political instability?
They provide aid and mediation. They provide aid and mediation.
How does political instability impact local businesses? How does political instability impact local businesses?
It disrupts operations and lowers sales. It disrupts operations and lowers sales.
What effect does economic instability have on poverty rates? What effect does economic instability have on poverty rates?
Poverty rates typically increase. Poverty rates typically increase.
How can political instability influence trade agreements? How can political instability influence trade agreements?
It can lead to renegotiations or cancellations. It can lead to renegotiations or cancellations.
What is a consequence of political instability on infrastructure? What is a consequence of political instability on infrastructure?
Delayed or halted infrastructure projects. Delayed or halted infrastructure projects.
How does economic instability affect consumer confidence? How does economic instability affect consumer confidence?
Consumer confidence usually decreases. Consumer confidence usually decreases.
What is a political risk for multinational corporations? What is a political risk for multinational corporations?
Expropriation of assets by the government. Expropriation of assets by the government.
How does political instability impact international relations? How does political instability impact international relations?
It strains diplomatic and trade relations. It strains diplomatic and trade relations.
What effect does economic instability have on investment flows? What effect does economic instability have on investment flows?
Investment flows decline significantly. Investment flows decline significantly.
How do businesses adapt pricing in unstable economies? How do businesses adapt pricing in unstable economies?
They adjust prices to account for inflation and currency changes. They adjust prices to account for inflation and currency changes.
What is the impact of political instability on banking systems? What is the impact of political instability on banking systems?
Can lead to bank runs and collapses. Can lead to bank runs and collapses.
How does economic instability influence social unrest? How does economic instability influence social unrest?
Economic instability often triggers protests and strikes. Economic instability often triggers protests and strikes.
How can governments mitigate economic instability? How can governments mitigate economic instability?
Implementing fiscal and monetary policies. Implementing fiscal and monetary policies.
What is the role of media in political instability? What is the role of media in political instability?
Media can amplify or mitigate perceptions of instability. Media can amplify or mitigate perceptions of instability.
How does political instability affect real estate markets? How does political instability affect real estate markets?
Property values usually decrease. Property values usually decrease.
How do companies manage economic instability in supply chains? How do companies manage economic instability in supply chains?
By building flexibility and contingency plans. By building flexibility and contingency plans.
What is a common financial strategy during economic instability? What is a common financial strategy during economic instability?
Increasing cash reserves and reducing debt. Increasing cash reserves and reducing debt.
How does political instability impact public services? How does political instability impact public services?
Public services may deteriorate or become unreliable. Public services may deteriorate or become unreliable.
What is the effect of economic instability on interest rates? What is the effect of economic instability on interest rates?
Interest rates may become highly volatile. Interest rates may become highly volatile.
How do multinational companies handle political unrest? How do multinational companies handle political unrest?
Evacuating employees and securing assets. Evacuating employees and securing assets.
How does economic instability affect cross-border mergers? How does economic instability affect cross-border mergers?
It increases risks and complicates transactions. It increases risks and complicates transactions.
What impact does political instability have on education systems? What impact does political instability have on education systems?
Disruptions can lead to school closures. Disruptions can lead to school closures.
How do businesses forecast economic instability? How do businesses forecast economic instability?
Using economic indicators and expert analysis. Using economic indicators and expert analysis.
Thank you for watching.